Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of Inspired Action, where we dive into the most pressing leadership challenges and hope to inspire you to take a more coach-centered and people-focused approach to leadership. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and it's time to get started with our three amazing guests for today. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the latest edition of Inspired Action. I'm your host, Kyle Pertuis, and I'm here with three incredible guests today to answer this question. What actions do leaders or maybe these three specifically take to grow your people versus just getting things done? So first of all, I'd love to do a quick intro of these three incredible guests. Reginald Jackson Sr, leadership and executive coach, mentor coach, trainer, speaker, facilitator. I think the list goes on and on. At Total Brilliance Coaching, his coaching philosophy is based on a holistic approach, helping clients to understand how personal life affects professional life and the stresses of one can impact the other. And maybe most importantly, why treating our bodies well is the absolute key. Magdalene Laws, senior culture and strategy leader with extensive experience working with the U.S. Air Force and Department of Justice. She is passionate about building learning-centered cultures, developing leaders, and aligning talent strategy with business impact. And last but not least, Artrell Williams, owner of Mukiva, I hope I said that right, Mukiva Learning Partners, where he serves as a learning solutions provider, performance coach, where he helps companies identify performance gaps and partners with them develop and implement solutions that improve operational effectiveness. And I'm going to add something to Artrell. I sat in on the session that he did on IA that was absolutely phenomenal. And let me tell you something. I didn't say anything about comedy, but this guy brings it. This guy is absolutely when you watch him live and in action. And so with that being said, I hope I set you up pretty good, Artrell, because you drew the short end of the stick and you're going first. So help us answer this question. What actions do leaders take, or have maybe you taken specifically to grow your people versus just trying to get things done?
The actions that I've taken, and I'll go ahead and take that question from my own perspective as opposed to anything general, because as a leader, there's plenty of opportunities to do so, but it wasn't until later in my career where I realized the importance of being deliberate about it. And most recently, I had a team with not all the skills that I needed. There was some self-servience there in that I wanted to expand the skill set of my team beyond what was originally given to me was technical writers. So I had people who were brought in to capture SOPs. They were basically documenting processes in the manufacturing site that we worked. As some of the work that they were doing with that started to dry up, I wanted to use them for more of what I knew L&D was all about anyway. So I was brought into an organization in which they didn't have the training team that had the skill set that I was familiar with, but they did have these technical writers who were capturing the SOPs. So I inherited this team when I got the job. As the other work that they were brought into got dried up, I said, let me figure out how to expand into custom content development. So I had one person in particular that was perfect for that. I had another person that was perfect for videography, and he actually had a background in that. And another person who had led a training team at a different organization before. But none of them had the delivery skills that I needed, or the instructional design skills, the LMS application skills. And I needed all of those things, especially if we're going to create custom content and then put it into a repository for people to have access to. We started going to conferences together. We were sitting on conference calls. I let them know that I wanted to expand their skill sets and I wanted to add value to their work experience too, but I also wanted to make sure that they remained valuable to the organization. And just creating that buy-in with them, helping them to understand why I was pushing them a little bit further than they were accustomed to being pushed, then help them to be receptive to the other asks that I had as we started to get into things that eventually evolved into us creating an award-winning card game in that manufacturing environment. So as a scholar of gamification, applying game-based concepts to learning, delivery, and design, we ended up creating a playing card game that taught manufacturing processes while also introducing concepts like our company's mission and values, our KPIs, and other aspects that were relevant to our work environment. And it won an award at Tech Learn Conference in San Antonio that year, and won another award with our Japanese providers. There was a Japanese company that we worked for, and it got recognized in Japan. So because I had this vision that we could create something that was outside of the box, but we needed additional skills to do so, I brought him on board. We figured out how we could do what needed to be done for the organization, but also push the needle a little bit from a gamification perspective, because a lot of people weren't aware of how we could leverage that. And got to the point where everybody was satisfied with what we did, and we achieved some things that people really didn't even know we could.
That's cool, and I love the way you said that towards the end about having the vision, right? I think that's leaders have to see that potential in others, because you can't delegate development, right? You can't say, "Hey, Artrell, I need you to go work on this," or pick some things to make your skill set better, or become a better leader, or whatever, right? That doesn't always work. Awesome. Let's jump over to Maggie. Maggie, what would you add to that from the perspective of growing your people versus just nudging them enough to get things done?
Yeah, I love everything Artell said, because I have recently was on a project with the Air Force where we were asked to create simulations using avatars, much like what we do for pilots. But a lot of what we do for pilots is technical. And we were asked to use it to develop leaders. And so I had a team, and we were all like, how are we going to do this? And so you have to be intentional. And I think right from the get-go, something I learned a little later on is really getting them to understand the why. And then I always I have a 4-step process. I'm all about giving people, like, this is how you can do it. And I learned it from generals. Always ask and be deliberate, intentional. What's working on how we're moving forward with this? We were building something new, much like what Artell was saying. We were building these avatars to help people learn how to be better leaders. And should we use AI? Should we use people? We weren't sure. So we'd be constantly asking them, like, what's working well, what's not working. And a lot of times when we ask those two questions, we find opportunities that they can grow, because, hey, we think this could get fixed. And then now you see something they might be interested in helping to fix. And could I send you to this workshop or to this training to help us get that resolved? And then the last two questions I always ask, and I do this routinely with all team members, is there anything that's a barrier for you to be on this team and to get where we need to go? And that could be something small. It could be just a schedule. It could be something that is within the workplace. But it also could be them not understanding the full strategy and having to walk through the plan again with them. Sometimes people get things right away. Sometimes it takes them a minute. And just being intentional to asking those questions really helps people to not only be a part of it, but then find areas where they can expand their skills. And then the last thing I always ask, is there anywhere you want to go or get or build skills on while we're doing this project? And those 4 I've used over and over, whether it's a project or a team, or we're doing even a conference, whatever it is. If I ask those questions, that's how you get the teams invested. But then you're also getting them so that they are able to apply different skill sets and grow as they continue with you.
Yeah, I love it. And I think sometimes organizations and leaders forget that growing our people is actually getting things done, right?
Yeah.
It's not that you have to do one or the other. That's the continuous improvement process, I think, that allows us to maybe even become more efficient and get more done. I love it. Coach Reggie, bring us home, man. What would you add to those first 2 responses as it relates to, growing your people versus just cruising and getting things done?
Yeah, I will certainly pull from what Maggie has said and what Artrell has shared. And before I do that, I always have to give a shout out to the United States Marine Corps, because I spent most of my adult life as an active duty Marine. And a lot of what I learned about leadership came from the Marine Corps, because, as Marines do, we practice what's called developing subordinate leadership. And before you do that, the first thing you need to learn is how to lead yourself. And so once you learn to lead yourself, you then learn to lead others. And one of the things that Artrell mentioned was values. And so as leaders, it's important for us to not only know what the values of the organization are, but to also know, more importantly, what the values of our people are. Because it's not our job to motivate them. It's our job to make sure they have what they need to achieve or to acquire or to resolve whatever is before them. Maggie, I've spent some time with those who aim high in the Air Force. So the avatar piece really spoke. Yeah, the avatar piece really spoke to me because it's a way of us being able to embody in something else or in someone else what we want to share or what we believe will bring them closer to success. So in my own leadership, one of the things that I always keep close hold is a mantra that I used not only with my Marines, but also after I retired from active duty. And that is, I'll never ask you to do anything that I haven't done, cannot do, or would not do myself. It doesn't mean that I've been the expert in it, but what it means is if I ask something of you, or if I assign something to you, or if I expect you to be responsible for something, know and understand, I believe first and foremost, you're the right person for the job. You have the skills, you have the training, and you have the aptitude to do what it is I'm asking you to do. Whether you think you're 100% there or not, I'm not going to say is irrelevant, but that's less important, because if we have established a level of trust, which I believe is paramount for leadership, then when I come to you or when you get the assignment, you will know coming from me, I believe in you and that you have what it takes to get the job done. Also, where values are concerned, it's important for me to know, and I'll use this very intentionally, what makes you tick, what you understand, what you don't understand, what you care for, what you don't care for. And it's my job to encourage you, to extend the invitation, to give you some insight that perhaps you can then take from there to expand or expound on the thing we need you to do. The other thing, every branch of service and every organization for that matter has ways of being, acronyms, things they rely on that is a common language. So we are speaking the same language. And so one of the leadership traits that's always been very important to me is courage. And that is in the face of something that is adversarial or troubling or takes you off kilter, to still be able to respond. And that's not necessarily courage in battle. That's courage in anything you do, which also means, going back to that trust piece I talked about, that you trust your people and your people trust you. And if that's not there, then there won't be very much that gets accomplished. And so that's one of the very first things you need to do. As a leader, if you are inheriting a team, I just worked with a leader a few days ago who has folks on their team that they brought on, and they're folks they inherited through a merger when they finally, got things squared away and did the reorg. Understanding your people and what makes them tick, what's important to them, right? So the WIIFM, what's important for me, or WIIFT, what's important for them. When you bring those two things together, everyone wins, because now you understand from your own perspective how you need to effectively communicate to others and how to share with them what you need or what you expect as they communicate with you.
I think there's so much gold in what each of you said, and I'm just going to kind of wrap it up this way: to anybody out there in their organizations that is not investing in their people, you're probably just renting performance. So if I were to ask, maybe what's one thing, one system, a rhythm maybe that you individually have built into your week to make sure growth isn't an afterthought, right? I mean, we talk about, I love the way Reggie said it. The only way to be a great leader is to make sure that we're leading ourselves in that same way. And I think a lot of times people lose sight of the fact that we are all leaders, even if it is just in leading ourselves, right? So with that, think about each of you. What do you do? How do you make sure you're investing in your own growth every day, every week, in whatever frequency that is, and kind of describe that rhythm to the listeners or those watching? Anybody that wants to take it, just jump in.
Well, I'll jump in.
Okay.
If I was to give someone one piece of advice, what you say to yourself when you wake up really depicts how the rest of your day is going to go. I mean, it can be that simple. I have a lot of other stuff I do, but I make sure that every morning you take, even if it's a rough day ahead, that whatever you're affirming, that's how the day's going to go.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys have probably seen that video of that little 3 or 4 or 5-year-old girl standing on the bathroom sink. If you haven't, Google it or find it on YouTube. But she's standing in the mirror, just giving herself all of it. You are great. You are beautiful. I mean, everything, right? And I think that the affirmations of just affirming, hey, you know what? You can handle it. It's out there. Let's go get it. Yeah. And it sounds so simple, right, Maggie?
Yeah. I think it's taken for granted. Whether you're telling it's going to be a great day, we're going to, you know, whatever it is, but just it needs to be positive and intentional.
Yeah. Anyone that gets email from me in my signature block, and this is not arbitrary. It's not something I think it's cute. It's something I really believe in. And just before my signature is have a great day on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
And purpose speaks to intentionality. And so one of the things that I would share is another mantra, and this actually came from a coaching conversation years ago. And it's something that I live by. It's something that I share with my clients as well. And that's to make sure you align your focus with your intention.
Mm-hmm.
Align your focus with your intention. And while it sounds so simple, it's extremely easy for us to get sidetracked, go down a rabbit hole, get thrown off kilter. And the exercise or the story that I have them recount is, I'll ask a very simple question: have you ever misplaced your keys? Well, we all have, right? Whatever keys there are, we've misplaced them. So what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Well, where did I leave them? So okay, and then what's the next thing that comes to your mind? Well, I'm going to be late, or how could I be so careless, or right? And all of those things that don't point to your intention, which is to find your keys. So when you find yourself focused on something other than your intention, it only makes sense. You're not going to accomplish whatever it is you want to achieve. So remembering, if this is your intention and this is your focus, if they are not aligned, it's not going to happen. So for me, at the start of every day, I think about, what do I want to accomplish? Or what did I remind myself I was going to accomplish? Some things I write down. I love making lists. Other things are just top of mind. And if it's important enough, I'll then write it down. And that becomes my intention for the day. Last thing is, I'm a strong believer in meditation. And setting an intention, particularly in the morning, before my feet hit the floor, before I start with social media, before I start going through email, before I think about my first call for the day, how do I want my day to go? How do I want to show up? Who do I want to be as I engage with others? And again, back to what I said earlier, in how I lead myself. Who do I want to be? And who I want to be is what the rest of the world will see.
I love it. Yeah, you know, it's funny is you're talking through those, and you said, what's the first thing I want to do when I wake up? And I'm thinking, I got to find my keys. We always find them in the last place we look, right? Yeah, I love it. There's so much talk today about intention and being deliberate. I love it. Artrell, what would you add?
Well, add is all I can do, because I love points that I heard from both of them. And when we talk about the mantras and the morning routines and things like that, it makes me think about my grandfather and watching him as I grew up. And one thing that I heard him say quite often is, get out of my room. And I've learned the value of that as I've gotten older, because the power of peace and quiet. Like I got a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old at home right now. And I find myself mirroring what my grandfather used to say, get out of my room, because I do value that time that I get for myself. And I love to have it first thing in the morning. If I get out of bed, I want to get my mind where I need it to be, right? I want to set those intentions. I want to meditate a little bit and not have to rush into my day. And as I transition from corporate, where, it's like, get up at a certain time, you have to be at a particular place. Now I have a bit more control over the way that I start my day. And I choose to start my day by just sitting quietly. If I walk my son to the bus stop or something like that, I might sit outside if the weather is nice and just kind of take in the energy that I get from all around me, give some gratitude, make sure that I put out I want to get rid of any negative energy, first of all, but then I also want to send that gratitude for even being able to wake up in the morning, the gratitude for all of those feelings that I feel, even if I'm achy or whatever. It's better than not, for sure. There's some alternatives that I wouldn't appreciate so much. So even if there's an ache or pain or something like that, just to know that I was able to wake up that morning and experience that, and I was given the opportunity to do something about it, right? So just starting the day with a mantra, get out of my room, give me some peace and quiet, but also just taking that time to really set some intentions for my day. And I have found that that's helped tremendously.
Yeah, I love it. Now y'all got me thinking. I'm sure in your work, people ask you, especially and just in the way you guys have shared that, people probably ask you, well, what's your routine? What's your morning routine? How do you put, set your mindset to go achieve the way you do? And I always, when I answer that question, I'm like, you can go Google that. You can go read the book that's got the perfect 10-step process. You can go find all those things. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, what works for me may not work for you, but it should include some of these things, right? And I think you guys have all captured exactly what those things are. But the two for me, I think outside of the beautiful illustration Artrell just gave on gratitude are stillness and silence. It is so surprising to me how many people go through their days without just stopping even for 1 minute and just take it in, take in God's bounty, sit outside, listen to the birds, just nothing, no phones. People can't even go to the bathroom without their phone these days. Stillness and silence. And then the other one is just to piggyback on, I tell people they've got this whole AI thing all wrong. AI is really about awareness and intention. That's what it's about. At the end of the day, are we doing things that elevate our personal awareness? And are we being intentional with the way we want to show up and impact this world? So with that, I'm going to call it a wrap. Man, that was a great, great episode. I appreciate y'all's contributions so much. Thanks everybody for watching. Be sure to join us on LinkedIn every single Thursday at noon for a new episode, and anytime right here on YouTube at YouTube MindFit Coaching. Thanks and have a great one.
That's a wrap for another edition of Inspired Action, the Leadership Forecast. We're so grateful for our guests today and the impact they're making with the work they do. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel to watch the longer version of this episode, and be sure to like, comment, connect with, and follow me and each of our guests. You'll find all of our links in the caption of this video. Thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in every Thursday at noon Central, 1 p.m. Eastern for new episodes.